The town's nightmare, Smiles the clown. The rain began to drizzle softly over the small town of Ashwick, the kind of town where nothing ever happened. Nestled in a quiet valley, it was the perfect place to raise a family, until he came. No one knew where the clown came from, but the terror he brought with him was unforgettable. It started with a whisper. Rumors spread through the town about strange sightings near the old amusement park, which had been shut down for years after an accident claimed several lives. No one went there anymore. It was considered cursed, but now something else seemed to have moved in. "Did you hear?" Laura, the town's gossip, whispered at the diner one morning. "Kids said they saw a clown, just standing at the park gates." "Clowns don't scare me," scoffed Jake, a regular at the diner. "Probably just some drifter trying to get attention." But deep down, everyone felt something different. There was a heaviness in the air, an unnatural chill that crept into bones and lingered even in broad daylight. Day 1, the first appearance. Sarah, a high school student, was walking home late from her after-school job when she saw him. A tall, thin figure dressed in a tattered clown suit, his face painted in grotesque, exaggerated features, wide, red smile, black hollow eyes, and hair that stuck out in greasy tufts. He stood motionless at the entrance of the park. Who are you?" she called out, her voice shaking. The clown tilted his head to the side, his grin widening impossibly. "They call me Smiles," he whispered, though he was standing too far away for her to have heard him clearly. She took a step back. "Stay away from me." But Smiles didn't move. He simply watched her, his black eyes glittering with something unholy. She turned and ran, her heart pounding as if it would burst from her chest. When she finally reached home, she slammed the door behind her, trembling. Her parents, concerned, asked what had happened, but she couldn't explain it, couldn't describe the suffocating terror that had gripped her when she locked eyes with Smiles. That night, she dreamt of the clown. He was in her room, standing over her bed, his painted face leaning close to hers. The smell of decay and rot filled her nostrils, and as she tried to scream, his cold fingers closed around her throat. Day 3, the laughter begins. The next morning, Sarah didn't come to school. Her friends said she was sick, but whispers spread quickly. People in town began to hear strange sounds at night, low, guttural chuckling that seemed to echo through the streets, yet had no clear source. "Mom, what's that noise?" Billy, a young boy, asked one night as the eerie laughter seeped through the windows of their small home. "Go back to bed, honey," his mother replied, though she herself couldn't stop trembling. The laughter grew louder each night. More people claimed to have seen Smiles, sometimes lurking in the shadows, sometimes standing in broad daylight, but always just watching. His presence carried with it a feeling of dread that no one could shake off. By the end of the week, the whole town was on edge. People refused to go out after dark. The local police, unsure what to make of the reports, searched the old amusement park but found nothing. Yet, Smiles always returned, his laughter haunting the streets like a ghost. Day 7, the disappearance. "Where's Sarah?" asked Mrs. Thompson, her voice frantic as she burst into the sheriff's office. Her daughter had vanished without a trace, and the only clue was a single balloon tied to her bedpost, a balloon painted with Smiles' grinning face. Sheriff Collins tried to calm her down, but the truth was, he had no idea where to even begin. There were no signs of forced entry, no leads. The clown was playing a game with them, and he was winning. That night, the town gathered at the church, hoping for some solace. Father Reynolds spoke to the fearful crowd, trying to reassure them that this was just a prank, a twisted joke that would pass. But as the priest's voice echoed through the church, a loud thud interrupted the service. Everyone froze. The heavy wooden doors of the church creaked open, revealing Smiles standing in the doorway, his wide grin gleaming in the dim light. A collective gasp escaped the crowd. "Who dares disturb my town?" Father Reynolds demanded, trying to sound braver than he felt. Smiles tilted his head again, his eyes locking onto the priest's. "I only want to play." With that, he pulled a blood-red balloon from behind his back and let it float toward the center of the church. As the balloon drifted closer, everyone could see the name Sarah written on it in dripping red ink. Suddenly, a deafening scream filled the church as the lights flickered and died. Chaos erupted as people scrambled to escape, but when the lights returned, Smiles was gone, and so was Billy, the little boy who had asked his mother about the laughter just days before. Day 9, the final showdown. The town was in a state of panic. No one was safe, not in their homes, not in the streets. Smiles seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once, his haunting laughter now a constant presence in Ashwick. The once peaceful town was now a place of fear and paranoia. Sheriff Collins, determined to end the nightmare, gathered a small group of brave townsfolk. Armed with flashlights and whatever weapons they could find, they made their way to the old amusement park. They had no plan, only desperation. As they entered the crumbling gates, the air grew thick with a sickly sweet scent, like rotting candy. The broken rides loomed over them, casting long, twisted shadows. "Stay together," Collins whispered, though his voice betrayed his own fear. The group moved deeper into the park, their footsteps echoing in the eerie silence. And then, they heard it, a slow, mocking clap. One by one, they turned toward the source of the sound. There, standing on the decayed remains of the carousel, was Smiles, his grin wider than ever. "Welcome," he hissed, spreading his arms wide. "To the grand finale." The sheriff raised his gun. "This ends now." Smiles laughed, a high-pitched, inhuman sound that sent shivers down everyone's spine. "Oh, Sheriff, it only ends when I say it does." With a flick of his wrist, Smiles sent a swarm of balloons into the air, each one emblazoned with the names of the missing children. As the balloons burst, thick, black smoke filled the air, enveloping the group in darkness. "Don't breathe it in," someone shouted, but it was too late. The smoke was everywhere, suffocating them, filling their lungs with a heavy, paralyzing fear. Through the haze, Collins saw Smiles advancing toward him, his painted face twisting into something far more monstrous than any human should be. The sheriff tried to fire his weapon, but his body wouldn't respond. Smiles leaned in close, his breath rancid and cold. "You can't stop me," he whispered, his voice like nails on a chalkboard. "I am fear. I am the nightmare that never ends." Collins felt the world slipping away as Smiles' laughter echoed in his ears. The last thing he saw before everything went black was that grotesque, grinning face, hovering above him like a phantom. Day 10, the silence. The next morning, the sun rose over Ashwick, but the town was changed forever. The amusement park was empty, and the group that had entered it never returned. The laughter had stopped, but the fear lingered. No one dared to speak of Smiles anymore. The missing children were never found, and the town slowly withered, its streets growing emptier with each passing year. Eventually, Ashwick became a ghost town, abandoned and forgotten. But those who remember, those who escaped, they say that if you listen closely on a quiet night, you can still hear the sound of balloons popping, followed by faint, distant laughter. Smiles is still out there, somewhere, waiting for his next audience. Waiting to play.
Don't forget to subscribe.